So I think we can like steer this into our first official question, which was how does it feel to start completely fresh on a new piece of art? Like I usually describe it, I teach music, and I usually describe it to students as like the reduction of infinity. You know, a blank canvas is the scariest thing. Is How do you confront the initial hurdle?
Yeah, this comes up a lot. People say this about animation too. They say, in animation you can do anything.
Yes.
And I don't want to do anything. I want to do something, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's there are you could say there are limitless possibilities, but there are a lot of limits, and to me the art form is choosing what your limits are going to be. Like, I think it's really challenging starting with that blank page. I like to think of the problem. I can't just jump into finding solutions. I need to know what I'm solving for first.
Yes.
So so I try to create limitations for myself and then enjoy those pushing the limits that I've
Yeah.
given to myself. I need the problem first so I can start finding the solutions.
Yeah. Um, right. I feel like I have a cheat code for it, at least with music composition, which is I have a template project that I open up every time, and it has a piano and one note written into the track. And
I
then,
like that.
yeah, so it allows me to be like, okay, it's not empty. And now I have this little note that I'm going to move around and see what I want to do with it. Or maybe I'll just go in and delete the note. Similar to how,
Right.
like I've heard it like in Blender. I don't know anything about Blender other than it starts with a default cube and you have to delete the default cube and make a new one. Um, so
Nice. So it's not a blank page. Yeah.
yes, I think that makes it a little less daunting, and then you kind of have to find the fun.
Yeah.
This goes into the next question, which is, um, at least in my experience, we don't really know what the art is about until we're like halfway done, or even almost all the way done with it. So, like specifically to your album, well, if you'd want to introduce your album that's coming out on August 29th, and then talk about how it
Yes.
came to be.
Yes. The album is called Lonely Magic. Comes out on the 29th. The single from the album, Hill to Die On, came out on August 15th with a music video. My first live action music video, which that was really fun. Um, but yes, it's my sophomore album. It's very different from Spiral Bound, which was my first album. Um, and
How would you
it's
describe
about
its
my
How would you describe its
oh
different?
um I wanted a lot more room for Jeff Ball to do. I wanted to do something a lot more cinematic, and I basically tried to treat my story the way I would treat one of the cartoon characters' stories, with all of the drama and Broadway influence, and it's a rock opera. It has a continuous story that runs through it,
Wow.
and it's been really challenging. Like I said, it's even with the first album, it's been hard to figure out how to get there and kind of tell a personal story the way I tell those
Yeah.
stories. And then also, I think I needed a little distance from the experience. So yeah, Lonely Magic is about my experience as a working artist. Animation has origins in parlor and stage magic, and so I just have these very complicated feelings about the ways that I've dedicated my life to this optical illusion.
Yeah.
But also, the animation has created all of my most important relationships, and it sort of keeps influencing. I mean, encompassing my personal life. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about. I think it's very related to what you're talking about on this show. Throughout, just the process of making the art that I've made over the last 15 years, has come with this roller coaster of just what was going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And there are little bits of that story inside of all the cartoons that I made through the characters, but Lonely Magic, I'm putting in all the pieces that weren't there in the show and connect dots between the story that was going on in those songs, especially Love Like You, which we wrote over multiple years when I was just really going through it. So, and it starts in art school and then it ends with what I've concluded, at least at this moment, from the experience I had, which was a commencement speech. I gave a commencement speech to an art college in Maine, and so I wrote it as a song because I've written a
Yeah.
lot more songs than speeches, and that I just really wanted to convey what I meant to the students because I think this is a very difficult time to be graduating and looking forward to a career in commercial art, or fine art, or just a career in art right now. This was not an elevator pitch.
No,
But
no. It's perfect. I think that conveys a lot of what you want to say with the album, and it also sounds very ambitious, especially going from your last album, which was what was it, 6 tracks?
yes, this is 7. They're much longer.
Yeah,
I had to shake the habit of writing 30-second songs for animated TV,
Yeah.
which is sort of jingle sized. But also, the Spiral Bound songs were totally inward facing. I didn't know if I was ever going to share those songs. And so this I approached very differently. I started with the song Hill to Die On, which was written for Toby Jones's movie AJ Goes to the Dog Park, which is this really funny micro-budget indie comedy. That song is the end credits, and that was the first song that I wrote for the album. And he came to me and said he said he felt he had, in a way, the film had ended up being about his Cartoon Network experience, and so he wanted a song that captured that captured this feeling of sort of, how do I explain it? Waking up 10 years later and you've devoted your entire life to this work, and suddenly you're 10 years older.
yeah,
and then you look back on all of it and you're so burned out, but you would do it again because it was the best, most fascinating time, but it just flew by. And so I tried to capture that in this song, and that really kicked everything off, which was like, oh, how do I work forward and backward from being in the thick of it, doing that work and pouring your heart and soul into it, and how did I get there, and where did I end up, and so that's really what kicked it off. Remind me how the question started.
Well, I was just about to ask. So it was for this movie. And so what I really want to know is how do you remember how it exactly started? Do you remember if you put down a chord or a melody or a word first?
Yes. Well, I did have the thought. I had when I was working on Spiral Bound. I now think in terms of like giant franchises because I've been trained to
Yes.
work on. I was doing like the Steven's show and the games and the books and everything simultaneously. So as I was working on Spiral Bound, I was already thinking about wanting to do the next album, which I had thought about as a sequel called Spellbound, which would be about being a writer and magic. Like that, I had those general concepts, being a working artist and magic. And the first one had been about recovery, so then I thought the second one could be about the work. So the loose thought was there. And then when Toby came to me and he pitched me this idea, he kept describing getting lost in this work, which is, I mean, I agree. I was completely lost in the work. And so the first thing I had started for the song was I was working on a hook that was sort of like something to get lost in. It doesn't matter, Well, I don't even want to sing it because it's corny. It wasn't. I was like, shit. I had. That's what I started. There's something to get lost in. Thought is where I started, and for months I was just kind of thinking about this hook, and it just did not feel right. And I was just like, oh, he's going to need this song. I've got to get this to him because he's working on his film, and his film was almost done. And then there was a night there was a night where it was actually right before Spiralbound came out, where I was sitting down and I was like, I have got to figure this out. And I was playing with that hook. And then I realized that the thing that wasn't working for me about it is that is not how it felt at that time at all. Like I had no perspective that I was getting lost in this work at all. In that moment, all I could think was, nothing matters but this. This is the most important thing. Everything else, can be set aside. My health, my life, all of it is just getting backburnered because I just have to charge towards this singular goal and prove that this thing is going to work. And as soon as I realized that, the whole song spilled out in a night.
Oh, wow.
All the entire lyrics, start to finish, the hook. It's actually such a strange song because, at least in my mind, the chorus for Hill to Die On is instrumental. It's a melody, which I wanted to be kind of like this feeling of just like the dizzying free fall of like I'm doing this. Is this working? Yes, it's working. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so horrible. Like just that's I don't know if that would even count as a hook.
Yeah.
I've never quite written a song. There were many songs for the show that kind of had to spill out in a night because I was working so quickly, and I couldn't work during the day because I was running the show. But this is the first time a personal song that's happened for that, and I just kind of finished it in an absolute daze, and I recorded it into my phone and I sent it to Toby, and I was just like, I think this might be the best song I've ever written.
Yeah.
He was like, I like it. So I was happy with it, but it kind of felt like it came out of thin air. Crack this code of like, no, really remember how it felt inside of it, and also realizing that the damage it was doing to all of my closest relationships, and having to square that with the passion I had for the work I wanted to do.
I think that resonates really a lot with me too. I think I tend to get really, really focused on things, and I will work myself to death, and then come out the other end. Usually, I will have injured myself somehow.
Yes, it's totally understand.
Yeah, I injure myself. I don't see my friends. I've barely fed myself. And I'm upset that I did all of it, but I'm so happy that I finished it. And like I made it the way I wanted to make it. Yeah, so after you recorded the track in your like a voice memo, then I'm assuming now you've gone back and like fully produced it and fleshed it out.
Yes, I brought it to Jeff Ball, and we were talking about what it meant, and I really wanted it to depart a lot from the acoustic guitar version that I had recorded. I wanted it to feel like big, and powerful, and we worked together to create this sort of, I wanted it to feel like a march. I liked the thought of like literalizing. The Hill to Die On is a term that I would always hear used by showrunners to say like, oh, it's the thing that I won't compromise on. There are other things that I'll let go, but it's like I'm ready to lose everything to make this the way that it needs to be. So I had my Hill to Die On Steven Universe and various things, when I was writing for Adventure Time, things that I would just not bend on, no matter how extreme things got or how much of a risk it would be. And so we started really treating it like an actual march, like a real battle.
Yeah.
With the actual marching drums, and then Stemage came in and did this solo. Actually, that was really fun to talk to him about, because I wanted this just soaring, and it was really meaningful to me to have him come because he had been, Greg Universe's guitar on the show. So having people who'd been with me working on the show, working on this song about working on the show was really meaningful, and I wanted a solo that would just like dive and soar and be scared
Yeah.
and be furious and just he said to me after, he's like, oh, when people usually describe when they describe what they want from a song, they don't talk about it like that. I kept talking about it in story and character terms, where I'm like, this part is the running, and this part is the fumbling, and this part is the reaching, and
Yeah.
there's insecurity here, but then there's confidence here. I just wanted to get that whole feeling of just like fighting really, really hard for
Yeah.
something. And he just did the most incredible piece for it.
Yeah.
That was fun too because I got to show that ultimately to Toby, and he's like, "Oh, it's so incredibly different from the acoustic
Yeah.
version that I had sent him." But it really was. I had hoped that it could be that it could feel, big and dramatic
Yeah.
and like a journey, and that was a big. This kicked off all of Lonely Magic, where I really felt like, I wanted that song to be a whole emotional arc and journey, and then I wanted the whole album to be one too. So that was the beginning of trying to create that, and then seeing that through. Some of the other tracks that are on there were actually written much earlier, but I included them because they were part of the story. One of them is even from 2009 when I first moved out, before I ever wrote anything for TV. But I placed it where it would go. It's like there's this one song about being in art school, then the song I actually wrote when I was just out of art school, then Hill to Die On, which is about the job that I was doing in the beginning. So everything, they're all written at
Yeah.
different times, but they follow the same story.
That's so cool. That brings to mind like when you're an artist, especially throughout decades, the things you make become like touchstones for yourself of where you were at in that moment.
Yes.
And it is a way of memory for yourself. Like, oh, I remember exactly where I was when I wrote that. Or, oh, I was horribly injured right after I wrote that. Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think too. I mean, I've been creative partners and partners with Ian Jones Cordy for, since 2007. So however many years that has been.
18.
But yeah, 18 for 18 years, and now everyone knows it's, math is not. I'm mostly cartoonist. But I think too, like he's seen that for me too, and we've been working together for that too. And there are these points I was making in college. I made a comic called Pug Davis, which is like a pulpy space
I
adventure.
read about Pug Davis.
Oh yeah, well, and there was a point on Steven where it just turned a corner and became fully sci-fi space stuff. And Ian was the first to know, like, oh, it's just become Pug. Like I just keep coming back to these things that they just feel right, and I'm like, oh right, it's this again, these like original things that I had wanted to do. So I love having that.
Right.
Keep returning to. It's like when you're really coming back to yourself. There were a lot of things in Steven Universe that were really unlike my work, but then every once in a while it would come back to the kind of comics that I had started out making,
Yeah.
and remind me what I love and who I am in this funny way. And the music feels like that too, coming back to it's coming back to a lot of the songs I wrote for the show and why I wanted to write them, and getting a chance to write like that, but for something independent is incredibly cathartic. It's I feel like I'm just, it feels like
Yeah.
remember who you are.
And I don't know. I think it's you kind of like create. What am I trying to say? I think especially when you're writing and you don't want to always write the same thing, whether this is music or animating or writing, like. Then I usually describe it as, this is my guilty pleasure when I write this specific style.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about Other Friends. I was like, I felt like I almost wasn't allowed to do something I was having that much fun
Yeah.
working on. Like just
Some
this full on goofy Fleischer 30s. Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how that works, and there is it's not a shame, but it's like I shouldn't do that because I feel like I shouldn't enjoy myself that much. Um,
Yes, what is that? I know exactly what you mean. And it's so strange because
yeah,
why wouldn't you want to dive headfirst into
right.
the exact thing that is fun? What is that?
Yeah,
I know exactly what.
I don't know if there's any psychologists out there, let us know. Okay, we'll take a minute or two break, and then we'll be right back. And we are back. This next question, I think, is a pretty gritty, and I don't know, might bring up like some icky feelings. But it's also one of my favorite questions to ask because I know some of the exact moments where I felt it. Which is one of the most brutal confrontations that any artist goes through is when they encounter someone who's like better at everything they're trying to do. There's always going to be somebody better. And for me, it was my first day in music school. I had come from, being the lead in musicals and, being percussion captain, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I, felt like I was on the top of the world. And then I get to music school and everybody had done the exact same thing that I had done or had done more. And I kept trying to find these qualifications of like, well, at least I'm better at this than them. And this sense of competition kicked into overdrive. And I feel like after a certain point, it just sort of eroded my brain enough where I just stopped thinking about it. But do you remember when you realized like the world was much bigger than you thought? And what was your reaction to it?
Um, let's see. I
Or
don't.
are or have you ever felt like a sense of competition with
Yeah, yeah.
artists?
I'm trying to think of. I mean, I started out, yeah, as an independent comic artist, so I was always going to small conventions and trading zines, but especially going to get advice from a lot of the people that I looked up to and give them copies of my book. So I feel like I was from very early on, interacting with people who were just on a very, very high level of skill and trying to just learn from them. And then when I did go to school, when I did go to art school, I had access to so much more of that. I had a circle of friends who I love and still love very much, and a lot of their work I was like drawn to them because of the way that their work was really different from mine, and the things that they were able to do. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw Ian's work like when I first went to school. He was working on his thesis film, and I was just like captivated by the way that his animation moved. And it was so different than what I was inclined to do.
Yeah.
So I did find, I think related to this, when I got a chance to do, well, when I came to work on Adventure Time, some of my like absolute heroes were already working on the show, especially from independent comics, because they brought a lot of independent comics people on. So I was just like, astonished and humbled and watching what they did and learning what they did. And then when it came time to make my own show, I specifically reached out to people who I thought were worlds, leagues better than me, especially at the things that I felt I wasn't great at, because I wanted their help, but I also just wanted to create a platform to
Yes.
show other people what I loved about what they were doing. And I felt that Adventure Time had done that for me, so I wanted to pay that
Yeah.
forward. And I know that's not necessarily what other showrunners do. A lot of them, hope to create a final look that is what their work looks like, and then bring people in to support that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make an idea that was flexible enough that everybody involved felt free to do the kind of work that they wanted to do within the project. which I think was true for the music and the art. And actually, I think this is really relevant, I think, to the new album, because one of the things I was so stuck on with Spiral Bound, and I do agree. I've had the impulse, especially as someone who made independent films and made my own comics. I felt the need to be able to do everything myself, draw,
Yes.
all the characters and backgrounds, do all of the writing, choose all of the color. And when I did my own films, I did do that, and I did spend years feeling frustrated and inadequate that I couldn't sit down and create something that looked like what we were able to achieve as a team of 30
Yes.
to 60 people. And it's like, yeah, that's not, it's a completely different thing to do. And, a lot of times, even during the show, people would, be very complimentary about the artwork and how it looked. And, I felt like worried because like I couldn't necessarily sit down and do a piece that looked like it looked when it was inked by Danny Hines and when it was colored by Charles Hilton and when you got this final result. But I could draw like I drew, which was its own thing that had a home just like everybody else did inside of the show. So when it came time to do Spiral Bound, I was very stuck because I was like, I don't know if I could say what my sound
Yeah.
is. I know how I approach writing a demo, and I didn't really want to release things that sounded like demos. I wanted to release something that was final. And that was a conversation I was having with Jeff of just like, I know, my original training was really in folk music. And I was like, I know I want this to sound a little more like folk. And then he really had the production mindset of how to frame and polish and finish what I was doing without losing any of the intimacy that he
Yeah.
saw in the work that came only from me. So I think what I realized making Lonely Magic was, especially after making Spiral Bound, was that was great and it was challenging and I feel like I figured it out. But I don't actually want to work that way. I want to work with I want to
Yes.
work with other people who are doing the things that they do, and be inspired by the things that they're doing and learning from that. And so that's really what Lonely Magic sounds like. It sounds like Jeff and it sounds like Stemage and it sounds like Ivy
Yeah.
and Steven when they're joining me. And then the art I did for the album is the same way. I teamed up with Alex Myung and Charles Hilton to do all of the artwork, and we basically just did, we did what we would do for the show.
Yes.
We created turns and designs. I teamed up with several animation studios to make animated music videos, and I did the boards. I did the stuff I do. I did boards. I cut the animatics, but I went back and forth on how the movement should be, and yeah, I was just back in my element doing what I learned to do with the team. And my favorite thing about that is working with people who are better than me
Yes.
at things that they do.
Yes.
And I had to remind myself that I can still do that, for a project that's not a giant,
Yeah.
commercial company owned. Like I just, the studio work is very important though. And it's something I'm always trying to do. I can't create something on that scale
Yeah.
on my own. I'm just feeling out and trying to find the scale that I could create on my own. And that was its own limitation starting out. How do I tell a story and how do I make the work that I make,
Right.
knowing that it has to be on a smaller scale really efficiently, or it really indulgently in the parts where it can be picking
Yeah.
and choosing in that way.
I think, like, it's always a great reminder when, you've really tried to do everything yourself. And I think this goes back to, like, me having the sense of competition with people in music school to then actually finding a community of people who were all, I believe, were immensely more talented than I. And instead of, feeling a sense of competition, being like, how do I make a project so I can work with them?
Yes.
And like, I think that just makes it so much better of an experience overall. Like, I have this internal drive to want to do and be able to do everything. But I think there is an even greater joy once you open yourself up to it with working with so many amazingly talented people who can make what you want to do, 50 times better. because they are extremely proficient at whatever you want to do, and you're maybe just a little proficient at it. And plus, I don't know, people is what life is all about. Even if, I had this conversation the other day where, people bother me sometimes, but I also believe that our relationships with other people are like the point of living. And so if we can make things with other people, that is fulfilling our life's purpose. And it sounds like you've brought in a ton of amazing people to work on this new album. My question is, did you bring back the omnichord for this new album as well?
I don't. I'm actually not sure if it appears on these tracks. It's a really different approach.
Wow.
I think we experimented with that, but I think ultimately our philosophy was to create a small chamber orchestra, like a Broadway orchestra,
Yeah.
that's performing a lot of these songs. And so we almost approached the production from a character-driven standpoint too. We wanted it to feel big but also small, and so that's where we landed, sort of philosophically.
Yeah.
That it's a tiny dedicated orchestra that's
Yes.
playing these songs, even though that they're all it's all session and but that is honestly what's happening is because Jeff Ball is playing live strings. Mason joined us on cello
Oh, awesome.
and bass for a few songs. So yeah, so
So,
it's a very different sound, and in ways it's more connected to the Steven Universe sound because of
yeah.
Stemage and Ivy and Steven. That the fact that Stemage had been the Mr. Universe guitar, which to me has such a particular way of sounding and stretched my limits of my imagination as I was trying to come up with music that would ultimately reach him and reach Ivy and
Yeah.
Steven. Working towards that and thinking about that, and that was wonderful. But approaching it from a completely different
Yeah.
angle.
Well, it sounds like, because I think your Spiral Bound is very intimate, but it's also very lush, and it's in its own way, in this intimate, closed way. And so it sounds like you're going for a lush sound, but on a bigger stage, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes,
Um,
it's bigger.
yes.
Jeff had also Jeff, Ivy, and Steven had all worked with me incredibly hard on the Steven Universe movies. That had been a full musical, and Jeff had done these really elaborate, like the orchestral opening song. Ivy and Steven had written these really, really challenging harmonies for me to sing
Yeah.
also, for each of the diamond parts when we laid the demo down. So it was returning to a bit of that headspace,
Yeah.
making something a little more ornate. I want it to
Yeah.
feel sophisticated and magical and immersive. It's quite a different goal.
Yeah.
And I hope that I really can't wait for people to hear these songs. We worked very, very hard on them for 2 years, and I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I think, like, even getting the chance to dedicate yourself to any project for 2 years or any amount of time, and then seeing where you're at as an artist afterwards, and even if you have moments of, oh, I probably would have done this differently now that I know this. Like, do you feel as though you've grown as a musician and as an artist after this whole experience? It sounds like you've made it. It's been a challenging experience in a good way, like in a positive, puzzle type experience.
Yeah, it was a puzzle. Yeah, I feel I've grown a huge amount as a person too, from doing this, and really realized what I want to do. that I want to be collaborating as much as I can, but also
Yeah.
I want to be able to communicate not just with the people that I'm collaborating with, but also with the people that are going to hear the songs. I think the exercise, it's not really an exercise, but the experience of writing the commencement speech
Yeah.
was really transformative. And that was really the next step after doing Hill to Die On, which was so much for Toby and trying to capture the experience that we had both had. After I wrote the commencement speech, what I realized is, oh, I really want to speak to the people that are hearing this. Like, I really
Yeah.
want to communicate to an audience. The Spiral Bound songs were so much for me, but these I want to reach out, and I want to talk to the people that are somewhere along this journey, and tell them that it's all right to be enjoying the
Yes.
work, and that it's also all right if it's miserable and feels horrible, uh, because so much of the time it did. But then there's also these, through the highs and lows, you learn so much and you connect with people through the art you make, and whether you're making it together or whether someone's receiving it. There's just so much that I'd like to say about that, and I don't really know a better way to say it
Right.
than work.
Yeah, and I think something that people, especially those who aren't either like committed artists or don't, endeavor to do any types of art, I think there is no feeling like it on the planet or in the human experience than working with someone else who gets it and is in something with you. And there's this electricity you feel when you can look at them or see whatever they're typing, and you know that they are on the same level as you, and we're endeavoring we endeavor to make a package together of some kind. And I think that happens in live music too. Like I have my brother and I, we've been playing music together. He's a drummer. We've been playing music together for 15 plus years, maybe our whole lives, but professionally, like we toured in a band together. And I played music with him for the first time in over a year, a couple weeks ago, and I forgot how amazing it feels to just work with, play with someone and have that type of connection. Okay, with time for just one last question, I think this flows nicely, like with all of the highs and lows and how like horrible and gut-wrenching the artistic process is, and how rewarding and how much you grow as you do it. You have said that Whisper of the Heart is one of your favorite movies. It's one of I only saw it within the last year, and it quickly became one of my favorite movies. And like, there's this moment where Shizuku and Seiji are jamming on country roads in the violin workshop, and then a bunch of the old folks come in and start playing, and that I cried when that happened, because it is, I think, it captures what it feels like to play music with other people so well, or just to make anything. But what do you think about it, other than that scene, that like resonates so deeply with people who do art?
Well, I think for me, the scene that scene, I love that sequence, but also when Shizuku is sitting outside while her story is being read and just waiting. Oh my gosh! Like I've just been that. I've had that experience so many times. As a kid, and as an adult, just that the way that feels is so specific. To me, I had the chance to give to do an intro for this when G Kids was releasing it, so I may repeat myself from that. But,
Okay.
I think the thing, yes, and I've given it quite some thought. The thing about that film is that it's about it's about craft. Like it's about process and it's about honing your craft, which I think is so interesting. Like you don't usually see. You can sometimes there are stories about art and artists, but that one is specifically about craft. Even Kiki's Delivery Service is so much about like inspiration and block. But the joy of the actual craft is so much what is on display in Whisper of the
Yes.
Heart. And then what's fascinating to me about it is that the craftsmanship of the movie itself is so unbelievable, just on such another level. You know, Yoshifumi Kondo's work is just so complex and rich and obviously like Miyazaki's boards. I mean, just everyone involved, their craftsmanship is on such a high level. And then within the film, there's characters getting inspiration from the things they're seeing with that loving, careful, meticulous craftsmanship. Like you're seeing the characters experience that, but then you're experiencing that because you're watching the movie, and that's what the
Yeah.
movie is.
Yes.
So that's what really gets me about it is that it really is what it's about. And the
Yes.
experience of watching it is the experience the characters are having inside of it, of
Yes.
being inspired, wanting to make work, and wanting to do their best work, and striving to be what the artists who made the film became and did when they made the film. It's just, there's not
Yeah.
really another movie quite like that.
There isn't. I yeah, it hit me so hard because I feel like I haven't watched a lot of movies about what it is to be an artist, but like in a joyful way. I think a lot of what you know pop culture will tell you is that being an artist is hard and upsetting and depressing and sad, but it is like there's a reason why we do it, and it's because it is the ultimate joy. And there's nothing else like it. I recently have you ever seen the movie Swing Girls? It's about this group of high school girls who accidentally poison the pep band for the baseball team, and so they have to fill in on their instruments, and then they have no interest in playing these instruments, but then they realize that they all love music. And so it's this whole film about these people learning that they love art. And yeah, I really wish there was even more media about what it's like to make something and enjoy it and love it, even though it's grueling and intense. Well, I mean, we could probably talk about this for hours and hours, but we are out of time. So your album, Lonely Magic, comes out August 29th. And where will we be able to find it?
It'll be available on all streaming platforms. There will be an animated music video coming out with the album that we have worked tirelessly on, called Ice Water. The song is called Ice Water, and it's the video for Ice Water. The single for Hill to Die On is out, and the live action music video is also out. That's available on my YouTube, which is Rebecca_Sugar on YouTube. And then the animated music video, and there'll actually be multiple animated music videos, are going
Exciting.
to be appearing on my YouTube right now, or when the album comes out, and then also over the next couple months.
Fantastic. And do you have any like physical releases planned for it?
Yes, I'm doing a vinyl with I Am 8-Bit. They did a spiral bound vinyl as well. This one's going to be all black with silver foil, very different treatment than the stamp,
Exciting.
journal one for spiral bound. So I love working with them because their attention to detail is just really high, and they do awesome work. So yes, there will be a physical release, and there's an opening night show at Gallery Nucleus, and I'm actually gonna I've never done shirts before, so there'll be a zine and a poster.
No
That's
way.
my wheelhouse.
All right.
I'm gonna have my first shirts. I'll try to figure out if there's a way to make that stuff more widely available. I'm just not sure how to do it yet. So
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and this was an amazing conversation. And now we will go back. Yes, and now we will go back to the show.